Hello, I'm Paul Rose. Welcome to Ultra Running Diaries, and this is episode 3. So, just a really quick episode today. I want to talk about the Ashridge Boundary Run, Ashridge Boundary Race, which happened over the weekend, which I took part in. I'd never taken part in this race before. It's one that's kind of been on my list for a few years, and things have always got in the way and stopped me being able to do it. Even this year, up until middle of last week, I had an entry, but it looked like I wasn't going to be able to do it. But things changed, and fortunately, I was able to take my place on the start line. So I'll start off, just give you a little bit of info about the race. It's about 17.5 miles, pretty much follows the Ashridge Boundary Trail. There are a few little detours, which I think they mostly put in there just to kind of keep, there's about 400 runners I think started it, so just to keep the congestion off of kind of the small paths and things that are popular with walkers and people who are just out around Ashridge. Obviously these aren't closed trails, it's open to anyone. So yes, about 17.5 miles, starts and finishes in Albury, near Tring. You start off, you kind of run from Albury Recreational Ground, which is towards Stocks Golf Club, run through the village, and then you run uphill to Ivinghoe Beacon, and you follow the main path, not uphill to Ivinghoe Beacon, uphill to Ashridge Monument, and you follow the main path from there towards Ivinghoe Beacon. After about 4k, I guess, I think it was, into the race, maybe 5, you kind of drop down from that main kind of gravel track onto the end of the ridgeway, so where the ridgeway comes over kind of Paul's Knob and goes up the Inchcombe Hole. You come in and it's like a crossroads and join on there, so you go up around the Inchcombe Hole, across Ivinghoe Beacon, down into the fields at the base of the beacon. Follow the trail through there into the woods. There's some steps, horrible steps, which go up towards a farm. Through there, kind of skirt around the outside of that farm, into the main woods again, down towards Ashridge Golf Club. Follow down the edge of the golf course to Golden Valley, run right through the Golden Valley towards Friston, where you kind of come out the valley up onto the top of the ridgeline, drop down the other side, through the woods again, the Berkhamsted Golf Course, follow the edge of that, through kind of Friston, towards Friston Beaches. You then turn left. I don't know what the farm is called, but there's a farm, and you go across kind of Berkhamsted Common, through there for a couple of miles, join onto North Church Common, across there, and then you go back downhill to Albury again and finish back where you started. Over the 17.5 miles, I think it was about 500 meters of elevation, maybe 550, something around that number. So it's not flat, it's not mountainous, kind of undulating hills. There are a few pretty steep climbs in there, nothing too ridiculous. What's interesting with this race is they change the direction each year. So this year it was a clockwise loop, next year will be anti-clockwise, following year clockwise, and so on. Having not done it before, I can't compare what it's like either way. I was kind of thinking about it, and I'm not sure which way would be easier or harder. It felt like this year, doing the clockwise loop, there are more steep climbs and then kind of longer downhills. So obviously that'll be the other way around, going anti-clockwise. So it depends on what kind of runner you are, what you're good at, what you like. Kind of swings and roundabouts, really. I'm good at running downhills. I can make a lot of time on those, so having longer downhills kind of suits me, and I can just power up the the uphills. So that's, yeah, I have to try it the other way to be sure. So that's a little bit about the race. You've got a mixture of kind of woodland trails, which were horrifically muddy this year. I knew that was going to be the case because I've been running on them for the last few weeks as they've been getting wetter and wetter. The kind of chalky hills over and around Ivanhoe Beacon. And yeah, so some of the more exposed bits actually kind of around the beacon and coming through Golden Valley and things actually weren't too muddy at all. They drained and dried out quite well. It was just in the woods where it was really, really muddy, but nothing too ridiculous. Across most of the course anyway. For me, I set out and I really wanted to. I said I wanted my average pace to be under 5 minutes per kilometre. It came in at 5:05, so I was a little bit slower than what I wanted, but nothing too bad. I'm overall I'm happy with it. At the start of the race, I felt very kind of sluggish. My legs felt quite stiff and tired. It ended up being a bit of a rush to get to the start, so I hadn't had any kind of warm up. I just kind of went out cold and went out quite fast to try and avoid the bottleneck that I knew was coming up. So yeah, felt quite stiff and tired, and I was wearing a running vest which felt quite heavy. That's not mandatory in this race at all. The reason I chose to do that was kind of just because when I'm doing longer races, 50, 100 miles in the next few months, you have to carry that kind of stuff. So it's just good to get used to carrying kit with you. It also meant I didn't have to stop at any aid stations, which made, particularly the later aid stations, I think there were 3 around the course, you could see people kind of stopping and walking out, and I just went straight through all of them. So I made up good time on people in those later aid stations. First half, as I say, I felt quite sluggish at the start and then kind of got into a bit of a stride and was all right. But I didn't feel comfortable really until probably halfway through the race. And then I started to pick up the pace and I really got going. And as that happened, I made up a lot of time on people throughout the course and overtook a lot of people in the second half, which is kind of how I tend to run. I tend to start quite slow, not necessarily deliberately, certainly not all the time, and then make up time on people and overtake them as the race goes on. It's not an easy race. I was sore for a couple of days afterwards. I was pushing, I was working hard, and I think, having spoken to a couple of other people who've done it, they say the same thing. It's a tough course. There are some steep climbs in there. There are some downhill which you've really got to think about as well. So it's a good, for me, it was a good training run, but it's a good kind of race for a lot of people as well. There are some very, very good runners out there. I'd say it suits fast marathon, half marathon runners who want to just kind of switch the trails occasionally, because there's nothing really technical on there. It's all fairly straightforward trails. You can just go a few rooty bits through the woods, but nothing mad. It's not like running in like Snowdonia or anything where you've got to have your brain on full alert the whole time. But overall, a really good event. It's one I'd recommend. Thanks go to all the organisers and the volunteers and everything for putting it on. I will aim to be back next year and try the anti-clockwise loop and see how that compares. But for now, it's just good to actually get a race under my belt and get that kind of competitive feeling, get an idea of what that's like again, because it's a while now since, I think probably September, since I last did a proper race, so 6 months. December I did a little kind of fun run type thing, So yeah, 6 months since I've done a proper race, and with big ones coming up this year, it's good to just practice that, go through the rituals of prepping everything, and being on a start line with other people rather than just kind of heading out the front door when as and when you feel like it. So yeah, it's a run I'd recommend doing, if you're kind of local to Ashridge. Get yourself on the start list for next year. Yeah, that's about it really. So thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and share and subscribe and all of that stuff. And I will be back with another episode very, very soon.